So I think we can get started. We have all the speakers there and some great team members that I recognize here. So welcome everyone to Insider Chats. Today we are very lucky to have Alex, founders of Matter Labs, with us. So thanks for being here, Alex. And as usual, you have myself, founder at Argent, and Julian, one of my co-founders at Argent, hosting this chat. It's only the as I hear someone trying to everyone. I think that was Julian. I think it's only the second edition, so a reminder on how it works. We'll do this on a monthly basis, always trying to have some great guests. It's about having a comfortable, casual chat or debate, depending on the guest. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree about all things crypto and what's happening in the space.
Thank you, Tamar. I'm very, very happy to be here and very grateful to be invited and looking forward to the interesting conversation.
Awesome. So I will probably ask by asking Alex to tell us a bit his story, actually. But I want to remind us, Alex, actually how we met. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's quite a while now. Event in London. I remember sitting on the table and having someone explaining me why privacy was so important, why like sharing a phone number in the UK was very different than sharing a phone number in Ukraine. For example, I think that was a bit the discussion, and then after a while, I realized you were the founder of MetaLab. So I still remember very well that event. It's been a long journey since then. So glad to be part of that journey with you. So maybe you can tell us before talking about MetaLab, ZK Sync, ERA. Would love to hear your journey. How did you get where you are?
Absolutely. And I also remember our first meeting. We were introduced by a mutual friend who is a VC in London, who also happens to be Ukrainian. It's interesting how we build blockchain networks, but they are being built by people networks. And we got connected because we had shared values. And this is very important. This is very fundamental to how ZK Sync was created. I remember like after the first conversation, it hit me like, wow, these guys are definitely someone I want to work with, because in addition to great product, they really deeply understand the value of crypto and like how the ethos, why is this space? Why does it exist? Why was it created? What is the rational? What is the fundamentally ethical frontier that we're pushing? So my story is, I was born in Soviet Ukraine shortly before the collapse of Soviet Union, and I could see firsthand how the bad rules of the organization of society, in a nutshell, like the lack of freedom, affects everyone, deprives people of the ability to express themselves, to achieve something, to use their creativity, to get prosperity. And I, as a child, obviously you cannot understand all the consequences, but as I was learning more about how the world works, I moved to Germany, I studied in Germany, made a career there in the IT. I was always passionate about software engineering. I was participating in competitive programming, was part of Ukrainian national team and at the International Olympiad of Informatics. I grew to understand more and more and more how fundamental is freedom to prosperity and happiness, because like freedom unlocks creativity and leads to progress. And I wanted to work on something that will increase freedom to the maximum. Like it has many aspects, but eventually, as I discovered Bitcoin and then later Ethereum, I realized that there is nothing more important in the world to work on now, because that's the thing that will bring the largest shift in freedom, which will unlock the largest shift in wealth creation for the world. And so ZK Sync was created as I was looking into like different problems, like what do we need to solve to get crypto to go mainstream? And there were a couple of things like UX was a big problem, security was a big problem, and then scalability. And then I think back then I already saw Argent appearing, and I felt like, okay, UX is in security for wallets is going to be solved. Let's focus on something more challenging technologically, like from like something that requires some technological deep protocol changes, and that was scalability. And then I was very excited about Plasma at some point, but then it was clear that it's not elegant enough solution. And then I learned about zero knowledge proofs, like zero knowledge proofs or snarks, and it was just immediately obvious to me that we have nothing even close in our arsenal of tools that can bring scalability to blockchains in a way that does not compromise this core values that make blockchains that high utility, namely trustlessness, security, um, and like verifiability. That this idea that you don't have to rely on anyone else, you can only trust the code and math, which is the same. Like the same thing. Like math and code is something you verify for yourself. You don't have to trust authority. You can follow all the rules from the start, from the basic axioms to the most complex theorems, and you basically can verify it yourself. That's the essence of the science. And this is what we're building with zkSync. That's the big vision, to get to a world where everyone has access to um, like your digital world, your digital identity, your digital assets, your digital interactions with everyone else are governed by protocols that you control, and you don't depend on even an enormous majority of participants, and to do it at arbitrary scale. Like if we want to bring like if 1 million people want to participate, they should be able to participate. If 1 billion people will want to participate, they should be able to participate in a way which is affordable for them and super easy to use, obviously at this scale. So that was a long intro. I'll pass over to you, Tamar.
No, that's awesome, and I get the same vibe than in our first chat. I think you came with a very opinionated and strong culture, around crypto and privacy, and I think your background probably plays a big role from that. So it's really awesome to hear more about that. Um, Julian,
Maybe Tamar,
yeah.
yeah, if I can jump in, hey Alex, that's very interesting. Something else I would like to know a bit more about you. I mean, you talked about you before Matter Labs. I would love to hear actually, how you started Matter Labs and who are your co-founder. I mean, we've known each other for a while, but actually, I feel like I always talk to you, and you are the face of Matter Labs, and I know you have co-founder. So I would love to know, how did you guys decided to get together and to work on Matter Labs, and who are your co-founders and what's their current role in your organization?
Sure, happy to share. This is an interesting story. So the moment I learned about zero knowledge proofs, I started the journey, started to dive deeper. I read the Vitalik's 3 posts about snarks and the 3 posts about starks and all the other materials I could find. I quickly came to the conclusion that it's gonna be a challenge because the protocols are very new. There is nothing for beginners. To understand them, you have to actually go into the first principles and read the cryptographic papers. And I realized very few people in the world will be able to read and understand these papers, let alone like write code and translate this into actionable products. So I started looking for those people. I went to Berlin. There was the very first ZK Summit organized by Anne Rose. I met a bunch of people there. It was very interesting, and then I got added to some Telegram groups, and I was just reaching out to everyone I could, asking them like what they're doing, what they know about it, who they know else. And then at some point, I saw a Plasma implementers call recording where there was a bunch of people, and there was one guy without video. He was talking about building a GPU prover for snarks. And I got really curious, so I reached out to someone else I knew from this call and asked him who that guy was. They told me the name. It was Alex Gluchowski. And then I thought, like, oh, this guy sounds like he's Russian speaking. He might be in one of the Telegram groups where I was. So indeed, I found him there. So I messaged him and said, look, there's going to be DEF CON 3 in Prague in a couple of days. Are you going to come there? And he said, hey, indeed, I am coming. So we agreed to meet. We met, and we just spent the first day talking all day long about. We just jumped right into the principles of what we want to build, and it turned out he was coming from the plasma background, and he has a PhD in high energy physics from McGill University in Canada. So he was just reading the cryptographic papers and would just sit down and write like 50,000 lines of code that would instantly work out of the box. So like it was clear to me, well, I'm dealing with someone. This is the right partner to start this journey. Like it was very clear what we want to build. So we just started working right away from there, and we built the first prototype within, I think, a month. And that was the very first Zk rollup ever functioning on Ethereum.
That's really cool. Very, very cool. What does Alex does now? The other Alex does in
He's still working deeply on cryptography and protocols. He's leading our cryptographic core team, the circuits team, the hardware teams. He just doesn't like publicity. He's one of the few people on the all hands call who never show his face. But like he's really nice and friendly, and he just he doesn't care. You know, as you can imagine, a lot of people who are this mathematical, technical minded, they just don't care.
I would say it's a similar dynamic. I'm often the face, although Julian, now you're a bit everywhere, but Gerald likes to, he gets the work done behind the scene. We have a third co-founder too. Um,
But I just want to add, we now have a really large team. We have close to 100 people. We have a lot of genius people in the team. So it's not like now me and Alex we were just the first initial step. The team is now way more impressive and massive than what we could just accomplish, two of us.
Yeah, we see a lot of new faces
so it's really a collaborative.
When we chat with your team now, we see a lot of new faces. I feel like that we don't recognize compared to the very early days.
Which is quite impressive. Okay, no, that's very, very cool. Since I have you both, I mean, you both are the face of two, well-known company in the ecosystem. I have a few random questions to throw at you, and I would like you to answer in just one sentence. So
sure.
Very, 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 very quick. So, what's your favorite part of your morning routine?
Coffee.
And I would say dropping my daughter to school. in case she listens, I need to say that. Yeah.
So hey, Naomi. Cool. Another one that's interesting because I remember, Itamar, when we raised our seed round, that's a question that the first, investor we talked to asked us, and I thought it was a very good question: is what keeps you up at night? And I think this one, as a founder, it's definitely a question that has an answer. The answer may change over time, but there's always something that keeps you up at night. So what keeps you up at night for the moment?
Alex, do you want to start?
I have to honestly say I'm having really good sleep these days. It was not always the case, and the thing that kept me up at night mostly was the thinking about security, because we are in a space where you can't afford a mistake. We are we're building mission critical systems. It's like building an airplane or a nuclear plant or medical equipment that keeps people alive in the ER room. It's like one big one incident could cause the entire system to collapse, and then it's irreparable. So you have to get into this mentality and you have to work with it. And the examples I brought are not new to humanity, and there are ways to deal with it. You have to build you have to build defenses in depth. You have to be very paranoid about these things. And so now I feel very, very safe. So I'm sleeping well.
Nice, good for you. I think you sleep better than me, maybe. I think for me it has changed a lot. Usually, it used to be in the past things about Argent, like whether it's about traction or hiring or funding, there's always something. I think we have now a very clear, our job is not done, but on our mission to make accessing crypto very simple and safe for mainstream audience, we know exactly what's left to do, and the building blocks are there around account abstraction. So the new things keeping me and I think other people in the team at night is really the next level, which is fine. We will make everything accessible, but what will they do? What problem can crypto really solve for a very large number of people? So the usefulness of crypto is probably what keeps me up at night these days.
It's good. I like when you ask a CEO to answer in one sentence. You always get a detailed answer, but that's very good. And Alex, yeah, I certainly share your past sentiment. I mean, at Argent is the same, right? We are a smart contract wallet. At some point, we had $1 billion on basically one contract, which is like 600-700 lines of code that you wrote, and yeah, you need to be sure and make sure your process is right so that you can sleep at night for sure. Maybe a last question, Alex. We met a couple of months ago in Denver, and I was very surprised. I don't know if you remember, but we were at a side event, and there was like a piano hanging on the side of one of the room, and suddenly you went there and you started playing the piano, and you really felt like it completely relaxed you. I saw your face changing, and you felt perfectly calm and like in the zone for a moment. So I guess my question is, what's your favorite thing to do to relax after a tense day or a busy day? What do you do to just relax?
Hiking and sauna. Those are things like that completely recharges, like completely resets my mind. Both of this. For sauna, I can recommend like this Russian, German, Czech sauna culture where you go, not just this low temperature thing where you wait for a couple of minutes, but like really, really intense. You pour a lot of water with a lot of temperature so that you cannot endure it anymore. And then you jump into like ice bath.
That's good. I need to try that.
So I've started spending more time in sauna. I really love it, but I would add I like those two things actually, hiking and sauna. But for me, it's with friends. So I don't get to be with John and Julian as often as I would like. They're my two co-founders, and we're not in the same city, but we do spend time in sauna, the three of us. And I would say being with friends is probably the best thing to recharge. So I'm looking forward to our next trip together, which will probably be our company retreat in 2 weeks. I'll take over from there, maybe Julian, with a section that I call current affairs. So we have that space every month, and in crypto, 1 month is like a lifetime, and so much things happen. And so, Alex, would be great to have a bit your view on those things. So, I think the main one, the first one I come to mind because I was just reading a post on that was Ethereum mainnet having issues to finalize transaction a few days ago. And this was, I would say no one noticed in some way. Everything was super smooth. And what made it work is client diversity. So curious, Alex, first, what do you think about, is that an event? Is that a non-event? And how do you think about the future of client diversity in your context?
I will be honest, I haven't caught up. I'm currently at a team offsite, so I saw the news, but I didn't dive deeper what exactly happened there. I think it's not really a big issue because those systems are evolving. Those are, like we're building something more than just a technical system. It's not a device. It's not a gadget. It's an evolving organism or an ecosystem or like this organic structure that will be growing, will be like a garden. Ethereum is using the metaphor of a ever-growing garden. So like it's okay to have the problems that are not like you want to be anti-fragile. You encounter those problems, you become stronger, stronger and stronger. Just want to build systems in a way that are not collapsing if you have issues. You should be always able to resolve them. And in this context, client diversity that was a massively genius move by Ethereum to start with multiple client implementations upfront. And in the context of zero knowledge proofs, Vitalik had a really interesting article about like considering zkVMs as light clients for Ethereum. So like I think this is in the end what we will end up with. Like we are building a system, protocol network that will power the essentially all of the world's value transactions. So I just wanna quickly address what Itamar said before about the use cases of crypto. I'm not worried at all about this. It's obvious to me. It's coming as a snowball, like the wave of adoption that we will see in the near future, with like originating maybe in the third world countries and then going into the Western world. Everything, just like everything went online after the invention of the internet, although it took like a couple of decades. The same thing is happening with crypto. Everything that touches value or identity in any form will be on chain. And it's like it will be incorporated by big organizations, by individuals, by everyone. So this is coming, but like in order to support this massive scale, we need redundancy. We need to build systems like, you never rely on a single sensor in an airplane. You need always like multiple systems so that if one fails, the other ones are resilient. So in the context of zkVMs and zero knowledge proofs, which I believe is the only technology that can power this, the infinitely or like limitlessly growing internet of value, we'll probably end up with something like the same zkVM implemented within multiple proof systems, and all of them, or like two or three of them, have to be validated in order for the block to be considered valid. So like this is definitely a really good idea, and it will go in this direction.
Very interesting. So a world where all the zkVM competing are actually working together towards scaling Ethereum.
Yeah, we'll definitely end up with some standards that everyone embraces. I mean, EVM itself is a standard, and like, or Solidity, EVM conventions, ABI, and so on. I just don't think the current EVM, like Ethereum virtual machine specification as defined in the yellow paper of Ethereum, is something that will stick there. Because it's like you work with abstractions, you write code in Solidity, you can compile it, and as a developer, as long as your tooling is fully supported, you don't really care what the underlying bytecode is. So I think Ethereum will itself move into direction of being more ZK friendly, because you want the maximum efficiency. We'll be increasing the efficiency of the proofs. There are new proof systems on the way that are massively superior to what we're currently using. We will be increasing the efficiency of hardware. We will get orders of magnitude improvement. So we'll get the transaction cost down to like 0.000 something 1 cent. But on top of that, you also want to increase the efficiency of the virtual machine itself and of the compilers. And you want to combine all of that if we're speaking about billions of people daily using blockchain systems for everything. Because those are going to be millions of transactions per second. So every order of magnitude matters in the long run.
Cool. Maybe jumping here, another thing that that's being mentioned more and more lately is smart contracts being built on Bitcoin. Do you think this is something that will take off, or is just a phase? And finally, can you imagine a future where ERA settles on Bitcoin, for example, and not on Ethereum?
That would be interesting. I lost faith in the Bitcoin community in its ability to embrace new ideas like fast enough to innovate. But if Bitcoin moves into just because of the kind of like all the talent I see moved from Bitcoin to like most of the talent moved to Ethereum, just because it's so much more open-minded community. But if Bitcoin changes and they are willing to embrace the like innovation in a sufficiently high pace, then it could work. If Bitcoin implemented opcodes to verify zero knowledge proofs and provide some data availability layer for the basic transactions, this could theoretically work. I will withstand, withhold from the discussion of whether the community will pivot this way or not. There is a big merit in Bitcoin maximalists being super ultra conservative. It makes a lot of sense, but like it just this trade-off between conservatism, between where is the line of healthy conservatism and healthy embracing of new ideas? Because you still have Amish communities who refuse to embrace cars and all the modern technologies, and they just stuck with technology they got in the 19th century. Is this healthy? Maybe from some standpoint, they live close to nature and they have this communal lifestyle, etc. But they're probably missing out on a lot of innovations in medical care and so on and so on. So this is roughly how I see it with Bitcoin.
I like the analogy. So Bitcoin is the Amish of blockchains.
No, it's a vicious circle because I think for Bitcoin to if Bitcoin evolves, is it still Bitcoin? It's your point on the maximalism as a reason and a fair enough reason to be there. If it starts evolving and evolving fast, then would it lose its purpose basically? But yeah, we'll not get into the deep that deep discussion. What I want to talk is something much more interesting, which is the launch of Era. You are now live for you've had many phases, but what I would call the nice, exciting big launch was about a month ago. Maybe you can tell people here, Alex, what is Era? Let's start with that. What makes it special?
Sure. Yes, you're absolutely right. That the big launch was a month ago, where Era was permissionlessly open to everyone to use. Era is the original vision of zk Sync. It's the implementation of the original vision. zk Sync Lite, the version 1 of the protocol, was more like a proof of concept, what you can do with zk rollups in general. It was just a protocol for transfers for simple operations, specialized zk rollup. You could do transfers, you could do swaps, nothing else. Era is the first implementation of zk EVM. So you can take any contract or almost any contract written for Ethereum in Solidity or Viper, and you can deploy it to this network largely without modifications, and it will just work out of the box, following the same convention. So it's a lot easier to bootstrap the ecosystem because all the tooling, all the protocols, all the services, all the dependencies just work. We are humbled and overwhelmed by the interest in Era in this first zk EVM by the community. We now have 1 million transactions per day registered for the first time. So yesterday we surpassed all the EL2s and Ethereum in the volume of transactions per day. We have over 1 million unique addresses. I don't know exactly how many of them are real people, how many of them are bots, but overall it's 1 million. And yeah, we're approaching 1 million followers on zk Sync Twitter. So that is a really humbling moment for me, and I'm extremely excited about this such a massive interest.
Awesome, and of course we know well Era here at Argent. The Era is really a zk VM plus in some way. So you have zk VM, but then you added some added features. Do you want to say a few words about what did you add to Era on top of the EVM and why?
The Era's architecture has a potential to unlock a lot of features that are going to be unique to only zk VMs. You cannot do it with anything else. You cannot do it with optimistic rollups or with sidechains, whatever. But for they will be gradually actually opened and implemented to the community, although they are part of the architecture. But one thing we did not want to postpone, we wanted it to have active from day one, was native account abstraction. And I wanna say big thank you to you guys, to Itamar, to Julian, to all of Dargent for helping us understand and appreciate the importance of this. So what is native account abstraction? I mean, maybe Itamar, you will do a much better job explaining what it is and why it's important. But I will just say we have it natively implemented in zk-sync at the protocol level. Like we followed the conventions of EAP 4337, but you can do much more at zk-sync than you can do with 4337, which actually, like, it's a first-class citizen at zk-sync. So Itamar, you want to explain what it is and why it matters?
Julia, actually, you are the account abstraction guru, so I think I should give you your your 30 seconds on AA.
Yeah, usually I talk about account abstraction for an hour, so I'll try to do it in 10 seconds. But basically, account abstraction is the ability to program the key functionalities of an account. So typically on the EVM, the account is hard coded and it's linked to a key, and there's not much you can do. There's no logic, nothing you can program. With account abstraction, your account becomes a smart contract, which means that whoever deploys the account can decide the logic, how to validate a transaction. Is it one key? Is it multiple keys? What kind of cryptography you use and so on. Do you want to just send one action per transaction, or do you want to have multi-codes and so on? So account abstraction is really making every account a smart contract, which means that now the account can be programmed and contain logic. And of course, at Argent, we started on that paradigm, believing that the only way to onboard billions of users to this technology, I think on one side is to scale, and that's something that other people, were tackling, like you, Alex. But we also believe that we needed to scale, the UX of self-custody. And for that, having account abstraction is required, and having native account abstraction is really the way to go. So, we are also very grateful for people like you to listen and to actually bet on account abstraction as well, because we thought that most layer twos would agree and would go down that road, but actually you're one of the only one who actually were kind of took the bet and were ambitious enough to realize that this was needed. So we are at Argent very, very excited to work with you, and that you guys are shipping a ZK rollup with native account abstraction.
And I think go Alex, yeah.
No, I want to return the gratitude, and it's a no-brainer. Once you understand what it means, what it unlocks, like it's such a basic must if your mission is to bring crypto in the hands of billions of people, because there is no way billions of people can learn how to deal with seed phrases security. There's no, like, people can't manage passwords, and there are all of these leaks. Like you really need to build systems that are very, very simple to use. Like an example, I think Julian, you always bring it up. That is an analogy is PGP. Like PGP is a really sophisticated, really smart system for in exchanging encrypted messages in a trustless way. But even the most hardcore cryptographers are not using it. But now with Signal and like WhatsApp and end-to-end messengers like this that are easy to use, billions of people use end-to-end encryption. So we will not reach mass adoption unless we simplify the UX to surpassing what is possible with neobanks. Like really simple, just one click, everything works. And yes, you want to you need to keep it self-custodial, otherwise it's not crypto, it's just a bank, and you will have all the problems that the banks have.
And I think in your point around being an evolving garden and constantly evolving, that there's still a lot of work to do. I think we felt strongly about L2 being the perfect opportunity to experiment. While a lot of them were very focused on let's stick exactly to EVM for very decent reason. The problem is that we are not yet there. We cannot ossify yet the standard. It's very, very hard to to push account abstraction on VM for good reason. It's a network that has massive importance with so much funds at stake. And L2 was the perfect opportunity. And I think, seeing StartNet, I see now in a forum of Aztec that they are starting to think about it. I think that's the right way to do is really to use L2 to experiment. I should mention that I think 4337 had an insane role. You mentioned them. Without 4337, I'm not sure all these L2s would have implemented AA the way they did. And no, it really helped cross that line for several of those L2s. So that's what's very exciting to see over the past 12 months.
I fully agree. Yes, the 457 was like they did the absolute amazing job giving the cards they were dealt. Their limitation was that they needed to come up with a standard that will not require any changes at the consensus level of Ethereum. So essentially, not requiring hard fork or soft fork of Ethereum. And they came up with a brilliant solution how to do this. Like we did not have this limitation, so we could go one step further and make it native and make it working for all account types and for with much cooler functionality.
I'm looking at the stream.
But yeah, building on the
I'm
sharp.
looking at the stream of questions. So my apologies, but I will not ask Alex when token. I think that's the most listed question in our Twitter feed. I will let ZK Sigma Labs manage that process. Maybe, Julian, did you want to cover a broader topic of ZK chain in general?
Yeah, I think we touched upon abstraction, which is a differentiator between you and some of the other L2s or some of the other ZK rollup. Maybe to continue on that topic, I would say the past 5 or 6 months, 2023 has been very excited in terms of ZK rollups. I think a lot of people thought that this technology would took ages to mature, and actually since January, you guys have launched. We have Polygon with their ZK VM, which have launched, and again, I say launch in a broad term, whatever that means, because every project has different phases. We have Starknet, which is maturing as well. Can you maybe, summarize or briefly explain the differences between these two projects and yours, without going too much in the details of which one might be best, but what are basically the key technological choices you've made that may have been different than the zkVM of Polygon and the approach of Starknet?
Sure. So let's start with Starknet. They were the first to bring generic purpose programmability to ZK rollups. But they have chosen to do it with a different virtual machine than Ethereum and a different approach to programming. They introduced the Cairo language. And that is the biggest difference, I think. Like you have to rewrite all the programs in Cairo, and you have to rebuild the entire infrastructure in Cairo, and that's a massive difference. Which we didn't want to do. We wanted to follow the open standards. We wanted to keep everything, and Cairo was not open source until now. I think it's still not fully open source. Like they promised to open source the prover, but I don't think this happened yet. We open sourced everything. The moment we launch something, it's completely open source. And we follow the standards so that people can, can plug in existing open source ecosystems. It has tremendous value. So this is one major difference between us and Starknet. With Polygon zkVM, they have followed some really, they have really strong team, and they have built a lot of good things. They innovated on the proof system, or they implemented the Plonky 2 implementation of what the proof system we called Redshift, which is just a synonym for Plonk plus Fry, and demonstrated that it's highly efficient. And they did some really interesting thing. They implemented EVM equivalence to a larger degree, so you can take your bytecode and run it on Polygon zkVM, and not just source code, and you don't have to compile, which opens some interesting things. Like you can all the proxy things, and manually it has a lot of upsides. We didn't want to go this round from the start, because we wanted to first implement something that will be future proof and most efficient for applications that need the ultimate efficiency. Because once you have this low level efficient programming language, and here we follow the approach of Starknet, you can always implement an interpreter on top of it, which will simulate the older legacy systems like EVM. So we can still do EVM bytecode equivalents later in zk-sync. But if we went for it from the beginning, we would lock ourselves out of the ability to compile in the most efficient way for the system. So like this is one difference, and the other big difference is that we have we like zk-sync and Starknet both publish the state diffs of each block to like ensure data availability, whereas Polygon zkVM uses call data, the inputs. So we publish the outputs of the block, they publish the inputs of the block, the original transaction data. And this has massive implications, but I can talk for an hour about this. We have shared some information, like some materials like what this means. I think it will be just practically visible in the short term, like what impact this makes in terms of cost, in terms of different use cases that this unlocks. So I don't think we have enough time to speak about this now.
Yeah, probably not, although that would be very, very interesting. Another thing that I don't, it kind of touches, I think, on what you've mentioned in a way. I think something I like a lot about Matter Labs is that you're very vocal on your values, on why you are building, your platform, and that's again that you touched by explaining, where you came from basically. And I think that's something that you guys communicate extremely well. Okay. Can you maybe explain, I don't know if that makes sense, but how that influence the way you approach your product? So these values being very, clearly stated. Maybe can you first of all, recap the values, which is kind of the North Star of Matter Labs, and how this has influenced some of the choices that you've made for your product.
It's like it's the alpha and omega. It's the throughout the entire organization, all the decisions we make are measured against the mission and the values. Our mission is to advance freedom for the world. We're bringing mass adoption to blockchain systems because they give people more freedom. And like everything we do, so we have a very specific set. If you go to our webpage, we have a list of properties, of attributes that we understand that blockchain systems must have. And everything we do is built from this longer term perspective. So we always start with the end. We always start with, let's imagine what's the ultimate future is that we want to achieve. In the perfect world, like if we have infinite resources and infinite time, like what do we want to get to? Or maybe like forget infinite, like in 2 years from now, where do we want to get? Like what's the end user experience? What are the properties? Like, is it self-custodial? Is it permissionless? Is it censorship resistant? Is it resilient against like powerful adversaries? Like all those things are forming this vision, and then we reverse engineer from there. So if this is a system where like users can do one click and they still have full control over their assets and they don't rely on this majority, and like what do we need? How do we construct the system? And then we work back, deconstructing it into milestones and tasks, and then we go step by step and implement those tasks. But it's throughout we keep talking about this at every meeting, every offsite, literally every decision is measured against like how close we're coming to the mission by doing this or this choice.
That's very interesting, and I think it really translates in your product, but yeah, how you communicate about your product, how you position it. That's something that I've always respected and valued a lot in Matter Labs.
I see we still have some time for maybe one big topic, and something, Alex, we talked a little bit is you mentioned not being worried about the future use cases of crypto. And while I mentioned that some of that keeps me awake at night, let's try to dive into that. I mean, I'd find that fascinating and very useful actually for us at Argent. If we think, 10, 15 years from now, We know we'll have highly scalable network. ZK and ZKVM will have many more TPS. We'll be able to onboard many more people. We know we'll make it as easy to use and as safe to use as Web 2. I've no doubt basically on that on the network and on the capacity of wallet, and hopefully we don't call them wallet by then, to be operational. How do you see then the world? Where will 1 billion people use crypto?
Oh yeah, that's a terrific question. So let's start with the basics. Like what are you doing every day? You're going to groceries, you're going to coffee, you're making payments, you purchase things online, making online payments. All of that will be on chain. That's just the baseline. All of the payments everywhere will be on chain. So like you will use, instead of Apple Wallet, you will be using Argent or like other wallets to just pay at in the shops and pay online, and it's going to be all seamlessly connected. Like you guys are doing an amazing work on connecting the web wallet with browser wallet with mobile wallet. Like it's all going to be safe with safe limits, etc. It's like payments alone is $1 trillion
And so
industry,
that means you
and
believe
like
we'll have scalability and privacy because we all know we'll need full privacy of payment, and
definitely,
this will be managed directly at the protocol layer.
definitely, yes, yeah, absolutely. So privacy is critical to achieving that, and this is one case where state diffs versus call inputs matter a lot. Like you really need state diffs to make privacy scalable. But yes, like it of course it's going to be all confidential transactions. So like take payments as a baseline. On top of that, what do you have? Well, you have your digital identity, right? Just the basic things, like you have your accounts, you have your Google account, which now controls like probably like for most people it controls most of their accounts everywhere. Do you really want to rely on a single corporation for this? Or would you rather have your own cryptographic identity controlled by you, where you fine tune the privacy, that what you share with everyone, what you don't share, and like you forget passwords, you just like do one click, no password connections everywhere, and you use it for not just for online accounts, for like Twitter, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, like whatever you use there, but for your offline identities, like you go to rent a car or rent a scooter in your new city, and you don't have to go through this terrible process of like create password, create profiles, like get SMS, connect your credit card, do verification, connect your driving license. Like all of that is bullshit. You should just press one button, instant connect, instant share, like whatever you want to share about yourself, and it should be like with zero knowledge proof. You can just say, I am a credible person, and here is my like proof of solvency that I can pay for whatever damage if I cause there. Done. You're in, and you can start using your wallet for payments to for these rides or taxi or car share, right? So like identity is the second thing. Now on top of that, you have your social media. You have a lot of things where you could use microtransactions if they were available. Like think Google searches, right? Like now you're paying to Google for search with your privacy data. You reveal a lot of information about yourself, and Google funds the development. Now it's being contested by AI services like ChatGPT, but they are quite expensive yet, right? So like every single interaction with ChatGPT, every single chat costs something like 5 cents, 15 cents. It will go down, but it still will be non-negligible, right? So like maybe it's going to be like some 0.0 something cent per transaction, per interaction. You will be able to do these microtransactions with crypto because it's going to be very cheap and very scalable. So like you can imagine that, and like everything that touches value in like like interactions, like micro tipping on like Twitter accounts that you like, or like Substack accounts, like whatever decentralized social media will evolve, like with on-chain reputation, with backed by zero knowledge proofs, and so on. And on top of that, you have your like traditional finance will all migrate into DeFi. Like most of it will just become DeFi because DeFi is just so much better than traditional finance in the ability to like in theoretical ability to implement transparency, enforcing the rules that you want to have there. Like why do you need a hedge fund which follows a certain strategy, relying on people to implement this strategy if you can just encode the strategy and tokenize all of the world's assets, bring them on chain, and just have a smart contract manage it for you, and do it across all different things, and make things a lot more efficient. Like there are things that you cannot fractionalize today, like an invoice. Like you sell something to your customers, send them an invoice, and you just have to wait 2 weeks or 1 month till they pay it. Whereas on blockchain, you could tokenize this invoice, get an instant confirmation from the customer that they are now liable to pay it. You immediately take it to some collateralized protocol, put it there, get they package it, sell to someone, and then you instantly get your money, and they can fractionalize it and sell it like a fraction of it and use it in trading. The entire machine of finance becomes a lot more efficient. So one example I have, which I really like, is how in the beginning of 1950s, there was a single idea that boosted the world GDP by like 10%. The idea was the containers. Before the invention of shipping containers, it took a crew of 100 loaders an entire week to unload an average ship. With containers, it moved to 7 people in one day. So like a factor of 100 improvement in efficiency of just unloading things. But since containers are such a core industry that connected everything in logistics in the world, it boosted the entire world GDP by 10%. So blockchain has the potential to do the same, just because things become a lot less frictionless, causing a lot less friction, causing a lot less inefficiencies on like cross-border transactions, like different jurisdictions, and just basic capital efficiency, just like internet did for the world of information.
Now, the,
So like, and then we can talk on and on and on. Just some very basic examples that are top of mind. There will be a lot of things that we cannot now imagine. Like if you think of the world of information before internet, it was like very straightforward, but internet brought, you don't just have radio or TV or newspapers in form of PDF online. It's all mashed and interactive and like media that you could not potentially have imagined before internet. I expect the same thing to happen with blockchain. And I think NFTs are one huge example of this. I'm positive.
no, it's awesome. And I totally agree. I think the themes you mentioned are really where I see things. I think what maybe the part that keeps me up at night is I want us to build those use cases tomorrow and not wait. And you, of course, as the network, your job is to build a network. You have enough there. We're trying to see, okay, how can we increase the usefulness? Payment is really something I think a lot, and I have a background in payment, so probably related. And I do see the aspect of the entire world being plugged to the same network as clearly the main a huge advantage that blockchain has. And so online payment, therefore, you mentioned micropayment. That becomes very interesting because by definition, online we are in totally different region. We have no idea where is this other person there on Twitter or Instagram. And if you want to send money, it's virtually impossible without closed loop platform today. So that's definitely a super interesting topic. We do talk a lot about identity. It's actually really in our mission statement at Argent is really about us control, give everyone ownership of their assets and identity online. And so I agree, these are two super important topics. The other theme I see there is basically the more we move real world, what I will call real world asset on chain. So the more, if we start issuing our invoices on chain, if we issue stock on chain, then it's very straightforward to see how basically all the tooling, all the DeFi ecosystem we have today can be applied instantly to those type of assets. So the more assets we'll see on chain, then of course the more use case will come out of that. Jillian, do you have You sleep well. You don't have any. Do you have any view on use cases? I think these are the usual theme we see. Although we do talk also about gaming these days, quite a lot.
Yeah, I think again, fully agree with what Alex just said. I think this is kind of the the long-term plan in a sense. I do feel that yeah, gaming is something that excites me for the moment for various reasons. I don't think games will change society as much as having finance being independent of state, for example, or decentralized finance can do. But something that I find interesting with gaming is that it's actually a way to stress the systems that we are building in a sense, without playing with people's money. Today, I mean, we are still building this technology, they are evolving, and today the main use case are financials. And that means we are building, these networks, developing this technology, using people's money. I mean, there's good and bad into that, but that's what kind of gets me excited about on-chain gaming, is that it's a way to onboard a lot of users. So really to kind of reach the next milestone of people coming to this technology on a use case that is not purely financial. And so I find that very, very interesting, because I do think that we need to onboard more people, but we do need to scale and test the technology so that it can reach really billions of users. So I do feel that gaming and on-chain gaming is probably one of the use cases that will drive more users to our space in the near future. But clearly the long-term use case that we discussed, they're the one that Alex mentioned and that you mentioned. It's really about controlling, assets, identity, and data, and really giving that ownership back to people.
Awesome. I think it's time to close. So I'll ask the very final question to Alex, which is to help us plan the next insider chat. So if you were the host, who would you invite next month and why?
I think I would invite Balaji, who is a very vocal advocate of the change the crypto brings in the world, and like the Bitcoin is the dominant payment system, and he has a lot of insights into like how the world works and how the current system that existed before crypto is basically exhausted itself and needs a replacement, and this is an inevitable process. So like, yeah.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And I think we need to invite people we disagree with more. We are very aligned on so many things. So, I mean, I know Matter Labs and Arjun in general, the founders, and so we'll try to get guests that disagree with us more. But I want to thank everyone. Alex, a big thank you for spending this hour with us. Thank you to all the listener. Please share with us your thought on the space, retweet, share it. Tell us who you would like to see joining us next month or in a future episode. And see you all in a month.
Thank you also, Itamar. Thank you guys for inviting me, and thanks to all the listeners. It was a really fun conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Itamar.